This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday. My guest today is Roxanne Groff, former Athens County Commissioner and longtime township trustee. Which township is it, Roxanne?
Bern Township, out near
Bern
Sharpsburg.
Township. That's practically all the way to someplace else, isn't it?
Yep, on the way to Chester Hill.
On the way to Chester Hill, yeah. I want to mention, since we are taping on July 30th, that today is the 197th birthday of a famous English novelist, Emily Bronte, best probably only known for her only novel, Wuthering Heights. And that's been made into movies, et cetera, but a very interesting family. I mean, her two sisters also published in the late 1840s novels. Best known, of course, is Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, but just an astounding family in terms of, I went up to the library and gosh, there are 10 shelves of books about all the different Brontes and all sorts of things that could be said about them, but she was, she managed to catch the Yorkshire moors in a special way and the lives of people who are very different and yet quite modern in some ways. So, Emily Bronte for July 30th.
Happy birthday.
Did you ever read Jane Eyre, et
Oh
cetera?
my, yes, but you know what, 50 years ago.
Yes, right. Yeah, I've read Wuthering Heights a couple of times. It's a fantastic film.
It is a book.
The films are not fantastic, in
Well,
fact.
no, because they can only capture so much of
That's true.
They can't capture the way she wrote.
Right, and she wrote so beautifully. But now what we want to do is talk about current events. And the current events, I'm just noticing in today's Athens News, there's a lengthy editorial by Terry Smith about county charter proposal, which is apparently going to be on the ballot in November. Had been put on last Thursday, I guess, by the county commissioners. And people are already writing in saying things like, put it on the charter so I can vote against it, and that sort of thing. And there's a new group in town.
I read that.
Yes.
I don't know that they're so new.
Oh, perhaps. But they are opposed from mostly from the property rights point of view, I believe. Anyway, we need to explore different ways in which one of the things that Terry Smith is objecting to is the legal aid which has been given to the local group that has put the county charter forward for the ballot. The CELDF or something like that, which is a Pennsylvania group which has been promoting bills of rights, local bills of rights around the country, and 6 states apparently, like 10 localities in 6 states have responded to their concerns and put forward local bills of rights, which would, in this particular case, of course, try to regulate injection wells for fracking wastewater and so on. And I know that you've been active with concern about the injection wells. Can you tell us something about you've traveled the state, in fact?
Well, I haven't really traveled the entire state, but I have made a swing through the Appalachian counties to get up to Trumbull and most recently Ashtabula County. And that came about a direct result from the Trumbull County engineer's office inviting citizens and elected officials to a meeting hosted by the county commissioners of Trumbull County back in May. And the invitation was to talk about the injection well problems in Trumbull County. And in April, there was or late March, there was a very large spill from a tank storage site at an injection well site in Trumbull County.
In Trumbull
It was
County.
in Vienna Township.
Vienna.
And it, of course, shocked and frightened the people of the township, as it well should, because of the chemical content of the waste. But it also got elected officials and citizens thinking, well, we don't know anything about this injection well. We don't know anything about injection wells in general. And so the commissioners hosted a meeting, and Commissioner Eliason and I drove up to Warren, Ohio, late in May, and went to this meeting, and he spoke, and I spoke, and I introduced, it wasn't the first time they'd heard it, but I made my statement around elected officials passing resolutions for a moratorium on new injection well permits.
Moratorium on new injection wells, which of course are under the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Oil and Gas.
Yes.
You know, I'm a longtime member of the League of Women Voters, and this is my most recent book called Know Your Ohio Government. Actually, they're publishing a new one just now, and I'm looking forward very much to whether there's anything in it that will be sort of changing, because this, which was published in 2004, was published just before the Ohio Department of Natural Resources was given the permission by the state legislature, given the authority over fracking and injection wells and the like. And so, of course, there's nothing at all about it in here.
No.
What it does talk a little bit about, but rather vaguely, is zoning. And in what way does zoning possibly fit into this picture?
Well, zoning is the result of a community having a comprehensive land use plan.
Okay.
And once a comprehensive land use plan has been adopted, township, county, city, wherever that plan has been generated for the purpose of implementing zoning ordinances, then that is it's what it says. It's a land use management plan. So townships, a little known fact in Southeast Ohio, because nobody in Southeast Ohio has rural zoning that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But in Northeast Ohio, there are a lot of townships who have their own zoning plans.
Zoning plans.
And under a zoning plan, that's how, prior to 2004 and 2010, the legislature stripped even more rights away for, including the injection well issue. And so in Northeast Ohio, where townships had zoning ordinances that actually had oil and gas regulations in it.
I see.
So the state of Ohio used the idea that there needed to be a uniform way of controlling and managing the oil and gas operations in the state of Ohio. So the legislature just wiped out all local control with a vote. And there was very little protest to it because we didn't have fracking and we didn't have the major waste problem from outside fracking waste, and we didn't have fracking in Ohio, so we didn't even have the need in our own state for
in 2004, but also even in 2010.
Yes.
It had hardly begun.
Correct.
And so this is relatively new problem, you might say. I should mention that long years ago, like 40 years ago, I think it is now, I was a member of the Athens County Regional Planning Commission.
Yes.
And I represented the city of Athens on that group for 4 years. It was interesting. I remember the reason I think I was appointed was that as a member of the League of Women Voters, we had studied in 72 or 73 county priorities. You know, what should be the priorities of local government here. And we were trying to prioritize. Well, unfortunately, maybe it's because I'm a waffly sort of person, but I kind of wound up with, gee, it's pretty hard to prioritize this and say, the most important thing is A, the next most is B, the next most is C, and so on. When you have a lot of different things, people in the rural areas are, for the most part, concerned about roads, I think. Certainly the townships are involved with the local roads and making sure, I suppose you get calls in the middle of the night. And
well, not in the middle of the night, but sometimes in the evening when a tree limb or a tree falls across somebody's road and they can't get home, that tends to, you have to do a call out for the
Right. So
workers to go out and...
These are the kinds of things that local government, right on the spot, is going to be worried about.
Right. Well, well, going back to the May meeting, when there was talk about a moratorium on asking Governor Kasich to do an executive order for a moratorium, of course, we know he's not going to do that, but it's also, the resolution is being sent, anybody who's doing a resolution for a moratorium, sending it to our state legislators. So in the northeast part of the state, there's a lot more activism.
Yes.
Because that's where fracking and the most number of injection wells are happening, even though Athens County is going to be #1 for waste reception, the most number of wells is up there. So when I gave my presentations, both in Trumbull County and then twice in Ashtabula County, I took a PowerPoint presentation of exploding tanks. I thought, what would better get people to see what could happen in their community than the explosions that are happening. Now these are, tanks, you hear of oil tanks blowing up and a fire in a gasoline, but storage tank. But what people need to know is that the explosions are happening because of the hydrocarbon content of this waste and how highly, highly volatile it is and susceptible to explosion.
Right.
And in addition to it exploding, it's the volatile organic compounds that are in the waste material. So you've got all of the toxic poisons that are in there, plus the radioactive material that's coming from the fracking extraction process itself.
Right. Well, and people respond when they see these big explosions, for sure. And I believe that we do have some pictures which have been captured, which you brought along. I'm not too sure whether can we see those pictures now?
There they are.
Injection wells, what they are doing in our communities, which Roxanne Groff has captured from around the country, actually. But there are several which are specific to Ohio, aren't there?
There are. There's two in the slide presentation. One was in North Canton, in Bolivar Township, where a worker was killed at the, during the explosion, and the other was in Monroe County, and it happened at a frack site, at a drill pad site.
At a drill pad site.
However, what blew up were the tanks of chemicals and the toxic waste. So 23 trucks blew up at this fracking site.
23 trucks?
23 trucks blew up. So even though it was at a frac site, it doesn't really make any difference. What was in the tank, what was in those trucks is what goes into the ground. And
Okay.
then what is in the storage tanks that you can see.
I think that we're now seeing some pictures. Will you forward those pictures? Was that one of the ones?
Yes, that's the K&H site here in Troy.
K&H
I'm sorry, in
site
Troy Township in Torch.
In Troy Township, right here in Athens County. That's not an explosion,
No,
but
but
it's
that's showing what
they look like.
That's what's in Athens, and there's 10 tanks on that site, and
10 tanks.
and right behind that battery of tanks is another 10. This is an injection storage tank site in Texas, and there's
Right, okay. Let's see another picture.
this is in North Canton. This is in Bolivar Township, Ohio.
In Baltimore Township,
And
North
this is,
Canton.
And this is where
This man was killed.
Yes, a worker was killed.
Worker was
this site.
killed. And there are several pictures from that occurrence in the northern part of Ohio.
One of the most disturbing things now, there's 2 from Ohio and the rest are from around the country. The Monroe County site, which was the drill pad site we were just talking about, there is a US EPA study that started a year ago to analyze, what happened and the results, and that report is still not available to the public.
Report is not out yet.
Which is
let's go on.
devastatingly absurd to think that a government agency in 1 year can't have a report prepared. That's, I guess
You've
maybe
gotta
not
wonder.
so. Maybe it's not surprising. but
Bureaucracy moves slowly.
Well, it's kind of a travesty.
Can we continue with another picture, please?
That's just a burnout site. You can just keep going through them.
There, now.
That's Oklahoma.
That's Oklahoma.
These are all related to injection into the tanks. This is Greeley, Colorado.
Colorado.
These are all tanks blowing up that have had waste material. And this just happened a couple of months ago in Greeley, Colorado. 11 families were evacuated from the area, and 5, I just read the other day, 5 are still not home yet.
Huh.
So this is Texas again.
This is Texas again.
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
This is Monroe. This is
the one we want to take a particular look at because it is right down in our territory.
Yep.
This is in Monroe County, which is just
little
actually
north of
abuts Athens County, doesn't it?
well, now that's Morgan. Monroe is a
Oh,
little bit up,
that's Monroe is-
a little bit up the road. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My Ohio geography is a little weak, but tell us more about this particular event.
Well-
Did you say there were a bunch of trucks that were?
23 trucks blew up, and how they blew up was a spark. It was one spark
One spark.
from a cable in the truck, and it ignited the truck. And of course, as I said, because of the hydrocarbon content and the volatility of that hydrocarbon content, the explosive behavior is this: it blew up 23 trucks plus the entire frac pad. Killed 150,000 fish in the creek, and we don't know about the air and water test results a year later because the US EPA hasn't
The
put that
final
report out.
report is
Right,
not out
right.
yet from US
But,
EPA in Monroe, this Monroe County event that
right.
happened about a year ago.
And as a big, not only just the explosion, but the fact that a local volunteer fire department would have to answer the fire
and not know what's in the,
and not know the content of the material. This was an instance where a highway patrol person, I believe, was called about the accident, and somehow the call went to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. They do not have an emergency response team.
they don't.
Only the EPA does.
Only the EPA, so
yeah, so by the time everybody got there, and I'm sure there was a hazmat team, and if I'm not, I was told that there were a couple firefighters that were injured in the...
Well, you would think so. Such a massive 23 trucks blowing up.
Yeah.
Goodness. And I suppose they were all gathering brine waste.
Well, they were there
Or
to
getting-
frack, so it
Oh,
was
yeah.
it was trucks of chemicals and trucks of waste. I mean,
Okay.
it's a miracle that someone didn't get killed.
Right.
I'm flabbergasted that
Right,
someone wasn't.
because
Well,
the-
150,000 fish got killed. That's pretty
yes,
serious.
that's pretty serious, because the waste
Yes, there
went
was
into
wrong-
the nearest.
Yes, went into the nearest body of water.
Right, yeah. So, but you seem to think that zoning might be a way in which this could be
Well-
controlled somehow.
In Ohio, Ohio has one of the most challenging for citizens to fight against fracking and injection wells. Has one of the most intense barriers against local control, and that was purposefully implemented by the state legislature and the lobbying of the oil and gas industry. Prior to 2004, there were townships, as I mentioned, who had zoning regulations in place for oil and gas
Yes.
purpose, and that was what the Monroe Falls case was all about, up in Summit County. And the Supreme Court ruled that Monroe Falls zoning ordinances were preempted by state law. Now, I'm pretty sure most people who have followed that know that there were two justices. One was Justice Terrence O'Donnell, and Justice O'Donnell said in his concurrence with the majority that he concurred on that case only, based on the fact that he did not feel that the zoning ordinance of Monroe Falls, he felt that state law did preempt it, but he also said that it's written in the correct way, written in a way that did not override state law, that possibly zoning ordinances could play a very important role in a community. Justice Lanzinger, Judith Lanzinger, who wrote a dissent opinion, she came right out and said, I do not believe that state law means to preempt local zoning ordinances. And again, written in the correct way, and she doesn't mean banning. Nobody said banning was going to be part of it,
Okay.
but manage it within a community. Now, that's not really what we want, but that's better than what we have.
Right.
So it's virtually impossible to have any control or management authority over fracking and injection wells without zoning, unless the state that you live in, of course, doesn't have a land use management plan. And
Well, I remember something from long ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was at least 15 years or so. I think it was back in the last century. There was this case in Jackson County where a well wanted to come in.
Yeah,
this
you-
was
you-
long before
you
all this
mentioned that, and
stuff.
I don't.
Yeah.
I have vague, if any, maybe because
Right,
you mentioned it to me. I don't remember that case. Did you ever find anything?
Well, I haven't, unfortunately. I should know somebody in Jackson County that I could call and talk to about this. But it was in the news for quite a long time.
Oh, I know.
I
who would
remember.
know.
And there was this, it was near the city of Jackson. And I think it was this big Texas company that does so much waste well injection. Not necessarily, obviously. This was before fracking. But they wanted to come in and put in this big well, and the people didn't want it. And, you know, if you look at a map of Ohio and where there is zoning, it is
It's not
perfectly
down
clear
here. It's not down here.
that 3/4 of the state has zoning.
Right.
But a huge territory, namely all of southeast Ohio, no zoning.
Right.
There is this real prejudice against zoning. However, this one place in Jackson County put in zoning and kept this well out, I think, for a while, at any rate.
I know who would know.
Who would know?
Judge,
Okay.
former judge over there.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
gosh, I can see.
We'll have to be in touch.
I can see he and his wife, because I remember them from
But
back
I remember seeing that new map of Ohio with 3/4 of the state with zoning,
Yeah.
and one little dot down in southeast Ohio where a township had put in zoning. And it was because of this threat from this well, which may very well have gone in later anyway, who knows.
No, I'll have to do some
But-
research. I know you told me that, and then I kind of forgot about it.
Why is there so much prejudice in this part of Ohio against the whole idea of zoning?
Think about it. We are rural communities.
Right, rural communities.
And one of the reasons that we enjoy our lifestyles here is those of us who choose to live outside of regulated areas enjoy
Right.
the fact that there isn't somebody telling you where something can go and can't go. However, the misconception of the public is that zoning takes something away from you. And that is not the intent of land use management. Land use management plans and zoning are for the protection of the citizens.
Right, well,
And so if you get it in your head that you're being punished for living, oh, I'm going to have this, and oh, I'm going to have, and, I mean, people think that septic tank rules are absurd, which, of course, I find
yes.
unbelievable that you would object.
Especially
to the
people
way that your
whose septic tank is a little too close to their well.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's not, there are very few, I think Hocking County made the most progress of the counties surrounding us of talking about and trying to implement some zoning regulations, and pretty much for the purpose to build industrial parks and for their economic
I see,
development
for
purpose.
economic development
Right,
purposes. Well,
right.
what I do remember from this long, long ago thing of being on the Athens County Regional Planning Commission was that most of the things that came before us were questions about access to roads, because there's this thing about if you have a territory, an area more than 5 acres, I think it is, then you can build a house on it, you know.
Right, right.
Whereas, so they can't sort of divide up an old farm of 80 acres into 1 acre plots and so forth, because for one thing, the septic tank problem is not going to be solved with that kind
Correct.
With that kind of small lot. So they have this 5 acre thing. But if you have an 80 acre thing that's being divided up, you may very well have a place right in the middle of the farm, which is far away from any kind of road. And then, you know, what kind of access will these people have to their property?
Right.
So there is this difficulty, you know. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to give permission to use my road, which is on a county road or a township road,
And give that to my neighbor for access.
and give
yeah.
this to a potential neighbor inside.
Well, what has not been explored in the
Yeah.
in the zoning? It's not even really a debate, but it could become a debate. What would be explored is, why would a county or a single township? Townships can do their own zoning, but they have to have their own comprehensive. They have to have
Plan.
a comprehensive. They have
Yeah.
to build it off of a plan, but. You know, to get to the idea whether zoning is a good idea or not a bad idea is you have to have a study, and there has to be debate. to say zoning is good or bad is way too simplistic. And so, but clearly across the country, there has been no case in court where a fracking or injection well resistance has been supported or denied without zoning. With no zoning, there's no chance of having any kind of win in court. And like I said, in Ohio, it's maybe some of the northeast counties, because they've had their township zoning
Right, they have
rights
zoning
taken
up
away, they would be interested enough and persevere through the process of trying to find ways to write a zoning ordinance that would stand the test of a court case.
Yeah, well, originally zoning, went way back to 1670 or some darn
Right.
thing.
Yeah, it's not.
And it had to do with things like butchering,
Right. Right.
Because a lot of people did not want to live right next to a place where they were constantly butchering animals.
Right.
I mean, as opposed to
A lot of people
your
still
own
don't
chickens
today.
or
Right.
whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
But, day after day after day, animals coming in and being slaughtered, and
Right.
a very smelly
Well, probably
blood.
not even healthy.
Yeah, right.
lack of control.
So
in
there
that
was
area.
this thing that you have to consider what people do that makes it tough for their neighbors. And certainly an injection well could be one of those things.
Well, it's a travesty that's happening in Torch, where you saw the tanks up on the hill.
Right.
There are within 500 to 5,000 feet of those tanks and the three well sites, probably 40 homes, maybe 50 homes in that
40
area.
or 50 homes within.
Within 5,000 feet.
Within
starting from
5,000
500 feet back. So
And
if there,
we're
if there
talking
was
about a mile,
there's an
basically.
if there's an explosion of the magnitude that you just saw,
right, in Monroe County.
one tank would take out all 20.
Really?
One tank exploding would take out all 20 tanks.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It just
They all vent.
pop, 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 pop.
Exactly. They all vent. So they're venting the volatile organic compounds that you shouldn't be breathing, and certainly are with just a static electric spark, let alone a cigarette or a lighter, which you're not allowed to have on the site.
Well, it's amazing, and of course, here in Athens County, we're now looking very seriously at this possibility of having the county charter with its Bill of Rights and specific control over injection wells and taking water for fracking from the county, prohibitions before the voters. And there are plenty of people who are saying that's a bad idea.
Which is a bad idea, to try to prohibit it?
Yes.
Well, my personal opinion is it's not a bad idea to try to prohibit it. I don't believe that this method, well, it's not that I don't believe, it absolutely cannot prohibit it. It's not, and it's not because state law preempts it, it's because we don't have zoning to control it. So you simply cannot control land use, private use of land without zoning. That's what zoning is for. So really, it's a zoning ordinance. So it's really not about the charter, it's about zoning. They're really separate issues because the county can have a zoning commission and put zoning on the ballot for every single township to be voted up or down. Any township can put zoning on the ballot to be voted up or down. And of course, you wouldn't put design a zoning plan, you wouldn't design zoning ordinances just to ban something, but to control the use of the land within your community.
Right.
So it's not the charter that is the issue. It's what it says that the charter will do should the voters decide to support it. Mm-hmm. It cannot do what it says
without the zoning.
Without the zoning.
That's your measured opinion, and of course you've been not only a county commissioner but also a township trustee. Well, tell me, does Bern Township have a planning?
No.
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 Despite the fact that you've been a township trustee.
No. Although my township trustees, because my colleagues,
yes,
did support the county commissioner's resolution for a moratorium. We passed a resolution supporting their resolution, supporting the moratorium against new
injection
permits. Yes.
wells.
So they're quite aware of the issue and have
problems.
We have small injection wells from vertical drilling operations from the local farmers, and those have been there for years and years and years.
But those are not the ones that are really in question, are they?
Well, they are, because in I think it's Alexander Township is where the Ginsburg well, and that's an old injection well with an open pit, and that's
right.
I don't know where the waste is coming from. I haven't looked at that yet. And also the Hahn well, which is in Guysville, that's an old injection well, and it could very well be taking out of state waste. I have the figures on. I don't have it with me. Mm-hmm. Definitely the four newest wells, which are out in Rome Township, the Atha well and the K&H, the 3 wells in Troy Township. Those were drilled. Those were built specifically to take mostly out of state fracking waste.
Right,
yes.
And that's been the case. I mean,
yes.
The first quarter of 2015, there was something like 1.1 million barrels of waste injected in Athens County, making Athens County the #1 county in the state receiving injection waste.
And the number 3 well isn't even online yet. It's been permitted,
this big,
but
huge
they haven't.
One,
yeah, they haven't started to take the 12,000.
And 9/10 of that waste was from out of state.
Yes.
So it's we're doing West Virginia and Pennsylvania.
Yes, we're doing them. We're doing their dirty work for
right.
them.
We're got a big favor for them. Well, and then there's this question about the roads, and there was a place down in I think off of the road to Albany. The
Ladridge Road. Yes, that's the road that goes out to the Ginsburg well that has been destroyed by the brine trucks.
Well. So
yes, they had a flurry of activity this spring with additional numbers of trucks that were going there on a daily basis, and that just increased the amount of wear and tear on the road. And I know that the county engineer, Jeff Maiden, has had more than one meeting with the operator of the well, and I don't know where that.
That's the Ginsburg well?
It's called that's the one where Madeline Fitch and the Appalachia Resist and supporting
Right, that was
citizens.
several years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah,
right.
That's what started the awareness
But that's
campaign.
not the one with an open pit.
Yes, that has an open pit.
It is the one
That's
with the open pit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's horrible. You can't stand there for more than 30 seconds without having
because
trouble
of the
breathing.
volatile gases coming off the open pit where the fracking waste is.
I mean, that should be shut down right now. That shouldn't even be allowed
Well,
to
I
operate.
understand that they have been turned down by the state. They've been stopped by the state supposedly. Why aren't they stopped?
Well, they had violations a number of years ago, and they were shut down, and then they come into compliance, and the state lets them open back up again.
Okay. So one of our questions should be, when's the last time state officials, because the ODNR, Division of Gas and Oil, does have people on its staff who are going out around to check on
Yeah, and they
things.
check and they give them the okay, and if they have a violation, it's corrected, and then they just go on with business as usual.
Uh-huh.
And the outcry to close down that well has been for years. And obviously we've
Nothing
not been
has
heard.
happened.
We're not we're apparently not loud enough. We're not vocal enough. I wear the governor's telephone number on my arm so that I can call it at any given moment that I am having a moment of passionate angst about the subject, and can call up there I call a lot, actually, so that.
Well, Governor Casey has other things on his mind
Well,
now.
I told the group in
Roxanne.
Ashtabula County, I said, here's our governor running for president, and the question needs to be asked if he makes it to the debates. Well, what are you going to do to the rest of the United States if you're so busy poisoning Appalachia? How's that going to play out for the rest of us? It did win a couple chuckles and a couple hand claps at that comment, but it's true. I mean, so.
Yes, it just seems to be, and of course, this is all part of our local angst about fracking and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But the larger thing is, now we are challenging Saudi Arabia for being a place where we can take care of ourselves. We're going to frack oil and gas.
Frack our way to freedom. Yeah.
And frack our way to freedom from the Saudis and so forth and so on. And goodness knows, I don't know, Roxanne, we'll just have to see what happens next, I guess.
Yeah, well, I can always.
But we'll have to find out more about the zoning business too, and what happened in Jackson County. And
I'm going to look that up. I can see the former judge and his wife, because they were active in, back when Save Our Rural Environment was active on strip mine issues. And I can see them right.
Right.
And I will probably think of his name when I'm driving somewhere.
Yes.
So.
Well, we'll have to find out more about that. And in the meantime, Roxanne Groff is traveling the state, or at least has been up to Ashtabula County twice, including once this week, right?
Right, and Trumbull County twice. So.
And Trumbull County twice.
Yeah.
Because this is a statewide issue.
It
It's
is.
not just us, and it's not just Appalachian counties.
No.
It is a statewide issue, especially in the eastern part of the
Yes.
state where the Utica shale is and so on, because it's not going to go away.
No, it's not.
So I very much appreciate your coming,
Yeah, it
Roxanne.
was great being here. Anytime.
And we'll have to get back to this. And,
Okay. That sounds good.
There's going to be a lot more on this whole question, with the charter probably going to be on the November ballot, although apparently they have one more thing August 4th that the Board of Elections has to, one more
Meeting.
meeting about this. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thanks so much for being with me today. Roxanne Groff, former county commissioner and current Bern Township trustee. This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday.